How many MRT or bus trips have you taken in the past 2, 3 months? How will our public transport system recover when life resumes? Now, earlier this month, Transport Minister Khaw Boon Wan said train ridership has fallen by 80% since the coronavirus outbreak in late January. That means $2.7 billion have been wiped out from last year's total fare revenue base.
Before the pandemic in 2019, Singapore's annual ridership was 2.8 billion trips, adding up to $3.4 billion per year in revenue. Revenue traditionally has been sufficient to keep the public transport operators profitable, government subsidies capped, fares value for money. And on top of that, there is enough to go back into maintaining a relatively new fleet of buses and renewing the rail network.
And this was all brought up in an opinion piece today by the Straits Times senior transport correspondent Christopher Tan. So let's get Chris in on this discussion. Christopher, what is your biggest fear or worry for our mass transit system in the short and long term?
Well, I think the most obvious worry for anyone would be, well, not only Singapore, but in all cities around the world, would be cost, right? The premise of mass transit is volume. The systems are built to move a lot of people as quickly as possible from one place to another, and the numbers speak for themselves. And if you don't have those numbers, what happens is that costs will go up, costs for the commuter, costs for the state. So as I assumed with the numbers that I projected, we are talking about at least, if ridership goes back to 50%, it's now 20%. If it goes back to 50%, we would still need something like $1.7 billion in subsidies to keep things moving as they were. Or fares could go up double, right? From 120 to 240. So that's the main worry. And with this cost, what happens is that people will become less enamored of public transport. I mean, even in the best of times, people don't really enjoy going on a train or a bus, right? They prefer to be in a car. So if the cost goes up, it's going to narrow the difference between public and private transport, and you may have a situation where, you know, all the work that we've been doing for the last 10, 20, 30 years comes undone, and people shift back to private transport, and that would tax the city. That would lead to congestion, more pollution, more resources, more space being used up, right?
Now, Chris, apart from cost, do you foresee any other problems when restrictions are eased and more people start using public transport again?
I think there are many worries, right? But the main thing, what we should focus now on is what we can do as individuals to make it safer to travel on mass transit again. And there have been many suggestions. I think the most obvious one that have been legislated most recently is the wearing of masks. If we wear masks and if we avoid talking, that would reduce the chances of transmission, right? And then if we are able to somehow shift the demand across the day rather than have them bunch up in the mornings and then again in the evenings, then we will have more space within a train, within a bus, and that also will help us prevent transmissions. And that is the main worry now, right? The transmission of this virus, which will cripple the city.
Right. Well, the current drop in ridership, 80%, is 4 times that of the SARS crisis when it was at its worst. So, Christopher, what happened then for the public transport system to kick into full gear again? And can we expect a similar scenario post-COVID-19?
I think the nature of the two epidemics or pandemics are quite different, right? I mean, we have already seen that the two viruses are similar, but yet very different. We have not been able to keep put a lid on this pandemic yet because of the way it transmits, right? People with very little or no symptoms at all can still be contagious for weeks on end. And that is the insidiousness of it. And with SARS, we were able to keep a lid on it and bring it under control fairly quickly because the nature of the virus was a bit different. And we were able to bounce back once we broke the chain of transmissions, and that's it. Right now, there is no sign that we're able to do so, even in cities where they seem to have contained it, in places like Wuhan, Taipei, Seoul, Hong Kong. Once they lift the lockdown measures, they ease the measures, we are seeing cases coming up again. And now people are saying that even with vaccination or herd immunity, there's no guarantee that you will not get infected again. There's no guarantee. So in the near term, or maybe in the foreseeable future, there's going to be a need for safe distancing. There's going to be a need for masks. There's going to be a need for a bit more protection, right? If we are hope to go anywhere back to where we were.
Yeah. Christopher, I just want to go back to the point on cost that you mentioned earlier on. So are you saying that eventually will trickle to, say, a fare hike in the end? Because you mentioned earlier fares may double. Is that what we are going towards? You reckon?
That's a simplistic kind of analysis. If, let's say, I'm talking right now, we are running at 20%, right? Which is, completely unviable. If, let's say, the circuit breaker measures are lifted a little and people get to travel a bit more, and volume goes back to 50%, 50% it's half, right? And if it's half, that means your fares will have to double if you want to keep things moving as they were before.
Right.
Yeah. So
Christopher,
yes.
No, please go ahead.
Yes. No, carry on, please.
All right. So, Christopher, the main gist of your opinion piece today was the ways in which our mass transit system can evolve. So, I believe you mentioned the pandemic and the resulting drop in ridership and revenue present a silver lining in several areas. For example, a fare adjustment formula as well as a new public transport model. So, can you elaborate?
Okay, so one of the many proposals that have come up in recent years is to link fares to service quality. We've not been able to do that for one reason or another. So, with the pandemic, we are on a pause button, and a pause button is a good opportune time for us to relook at things and relook at the formula. For instance, the formula right now, which has something called a network capacity factor, would be disastrous if it's applied on right now, because ridership is way below what the capacity is built for, and that would result in fares skyrocketing, right? For one example, the other thing, the other silver lining we can look at is how people travel and how people work, right? Right now we have a lot of people moving in one direction within 2 hours in the morning and then another 2 hours in the evening. Can that be spaced out? Can we so-called legislate shifts within the CBD, within work areas? Can we reshape our city so that we live, work, and play nearer without having to travel so far? Right? Singapore has been wanting to decentralize for many, many decades, and so far it's with limited success, right? So with this pandemic, maybe we can look at these things and accelerate them a bit, right? Change the way we move, change the way we work, change the way we live.
Well, good points you brought up there. Thank you so much for your insight, Christopher. It was always a pleasure to have you on this show.
My pleasure.
That was our senior transport correspondent, Christopher Tan.
If you're watching us on YouTube, the link to his opinion piece is in the description below.